Here's a map showing you the summer sky. This is what the sky would look like if you were looking due south at around about midnight, around about the end of June time. Okay, so over on this side of the screen, on the right hand side, you would see the constellations of spring, which would be setting very early on in the evening. And on the left hand side here you would see the constellations of the fall, which would be rising very late in the evening, and in between the constellations of the summer sky. Now in winter you look for the constellation of Orion, but in the summertime you look for an asterism in the sky. This is not an official grouping of stars, but just a colloquial saying. This is called the summer triangle. It's made up of the three stars Deneb in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan, Vega in the constellation of Lyra the Lyre, small musical instrument, and then Altair in the constellation of Aquila the Eagle. Those three stars together make up the summer triangle. That's what you're trying to identify. The three stars are quite bright, easy to pick out in the nighttime sky. In amongst those stars you'll find the constellation of Vulpecula, the fox, and Sagitta, the arrow. Now where are the constellations of the zodiac for the summertime? Well, those exist lower down in the sky. Capricornus is a goat fish. It's half a goat and half a fish. It was supposed to be, what actually happened was, in the mythological story, the gods were being attacked, and so Capricorn turned themselves into a goat. But then they jumped into a river, and the bit that went under the water turned into a fish, and the bit that stayed above the water stayed as a goat. So it's half a fish and half a goat. Sagittarius, the archer, and Scorpius, the scorpion. You can see that the constellations in the summer sky of the zodiac, they're low down in the summer sky, because in this region of the heavens the sun passes through this region in the winter time, and the sun in our winter sky is low down, so the constellations of the zodiac in the corresponding summer sky are high up. Now it's a very rich region of the sky, and that is because the band of the Milky Way goes right down through this. So a lot of clusters and star clouds and stuff like that in the summer sky. Okay, other constellations then. Delphinus is a dolphin. Achilles is a foal or baby horse. Aquarius is a water bearer. Scutum is a shield. Ophiuchus, the serpent holder. And Serpens is the actual serpent. Pisces austrinus is the southern fish. And Microscopium, the microscope. Some modern constellation, along with Telescopium, the telescope. It's another modern addition to the southern sky. Corona australis is the southern fish. It can actually be seen in the sky at the same time as Corona borealis. Sorry, Corona australis is not the southern fish, it's the southern crown. I just said fish there from Pisces austrinus. So that's the southern crown. And Corona borealis is the northern crown. Okay, so that pretty much covers the constellations that you can see during the summertime. And you can see that it's a very rich region of the sky whenever you take a long exposure photograph of it. There's the band of the Milky Way going right through that part of the sky. In fact, it's very, very difficult to pick out the stars once you get this long exposure photograph. There is the star Deneb. Oops, let's try that again. There's the star Deneb. There's the star Deneb. Deneb means tail, the tail of the swan. In fact, you can pick out the shape of the swan. It's sometimes called a Northern Cross because it does have a cross shape to it. So a swan has a short tail and then a very long neck. There we go, that's supposed to be the shape of the swan in the sky. This star here, which represents the head of the swan, is called Alberio. There's an image of Alberio taken through a telescope. You can see that it's a lovely double star. It's one of the best double stars in the nighttime sky because it has a deep, deep blue colour for one of the stars, and then the other stars are bright orangey, reddish, goldy sort of colour. It's a lovely double star in the sky. So there's the constellation of the Swan. Then this star over here is Vega. The shape of the lyre, it's a little harp. There's the bit you're supposed to rest against your chin, and then those 4 stars there, they make up the strings of the harp, the lyre or musical instrument. And then the final star down over here is Altair, which means eagle in Arabic. Okay, now if you go back to the constellation of Lyra, in between these 2 bottom stars you can actually see a famous planetary nebula, one of the most recognizable ones in the nighttime sky. It's called M57, otherwise known as the Ring Nebula. And you can see the leftover star, the white dwarf, is in the center there, and this ring of material has been puffed off out into space, producing that classic planetary nebula shape. Now, one of the things you get a grasp of whenever you're looking at the summer triangle is the way that space actually works. Altair is around 16 light years away. That means that it takes light from the star 16 years to travel to the Earth. So when you're looking out into the nighttime sky, if you look at Altair, you're seeing it as it was 16 years ago. So if you take, for instance, your own life, think back 16 years. What were you doing then? What age were you? Imagine that, if you will, and then ponder when you're looking at that star, you're looking at the star when it was at that time in your life. So say, for instance, if we consider the United States, at the time that I'm recording this video, we are in 2015. That means that if you go out and actually have a look at that star, you're looking at it today as it was in 1999, which is pretty freaky. The star Vega, it is 26 light years away. So that means that when you go out and have a look at it in the nighttime sky, you're seeing it as it was 26 years ago. What age are you? Are you 26? Well, if you are 26, that means that if you go out and have a look at that star, you're seeing it as it was when you were born. So for 2015, that means that you're actually seeing that star as it was in 1989. Because the light that left the star in 1989 is finally arriving at the Earth 26 years later. That's not the crazy thing, though. The crazy thing is the star Deneb. It is around about 1800 light years away, which is pretty crazy. To do the math on that, you're seeing it from as it was a long, long time ago. Certainly from a time long before any of us were actually alive. That's absolutely crazy. It's a very, very powerful star. It's about 100,000 times the power of the sun. That's why you can see it from such a great distance away. So there is the summer triangle: Deneb in Cygnus, Vega in Lyra, and Altair in Aquila. Let's zoom in then on the constellation of Cygnus. It is a really, really rich region of the sky. The path of the Milky Way goes right through it, so you can see lots of cool stuff inside it. It's supposed to represent Zeus disguised as a swan, and that is the mythology associated with it. There's also another story associated with not Zeus but Orpheus, who was supposedly the chief amongst the poets and musicians. He was one of Jason's companions on the Argo. Whenever he died, he was transformed into a swan, and then he was placed in the sky, and then the musical instrument that he played, the lyre, is close by him. Okay, so what can we actually pick out here? Well, there's a few things. This region here, NGC 7000, is known as the North American Nebula. It does look a bit like North America. This dark region here is known as the Cygnus Rift, sometimes called the coal sack. It's an interstellar dust in our local spiral arm of the Milky Way, and it blocks out the light from the stars behind it. I will also identify the Pelican Nebula, which you can see there. A very, very famous star is also recorded here. The star is called 61 Cygni, and that was the first star to have its parallax measured in the 1800s. So as the Earth goes around the Sun, it causes the stars to move about ever so slightly backwards and forwards. Certainly can't notice it with the naked eye, but with powerful equipment you can actually measure this parallax, and the star 61 Cygni was the very, very first star to have its parallax measured. Down in the bottom left you've got what's known as the Veil Nebula. That is an ancient supernova remnant, the remains of a star that blew up thousands of years ago. Okay, now those are some of the things that you can see in the constellation. The most famous thing, though, the most exciting thing that you can pick out in this constellation is not actually recorded here. It's quite faint, you can't pick it out very, very easily, but I'm going to highlight it. There's the location of it. That object is called Cygnus X1. It's an X-ray source in the sky. It's a first X-ray source in the constellation of Cygnus, which is why it's called Cygnus X1. Let's talk about it in a little bit more detail.